Fight me!
Hello, 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 hello. Yo, 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 yo. We are live once again. Welcome, 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 everybody. How y'all doing? We have another amazing interview. I've been on a streak of just pure interviews lately. The content has been a lot more fun when I have people on, and tonight we continue that good streak of having an amazing guest on. Tonight we have Sophia Zarate, a first-generation Mexican-American born and raised in the border town of Laredo, Texas. She relocated to New York City in 2016 to pursue her undergraduate Bachelor's of Arts degree in accounting at Queens College. Her professional experience ranges from finance to accounting to human resources, and she's also the founder of Corporate Pero Latinos, a Latinx community created with the purpose of facilitating social and professional connections through shared experiences. So I'm very excited. Got to meet Sophia in person at another event that was happening in New York City. Super excited. Before that, I had reached out to her in hopes of interviewing her and filming Corporate Pero Latinos at one of their events. So it just kind of worked out that we ended up at the same social event. So super excited to have her on. We are about to bring her on. Everybody, make some noise. Make some noise. Let me unmute her. Let me unmute myself. And now we will bringing her on. Make some noise. And hello. Yo, what's going on, Sophia?
Hi. Oh, okay. I don't see you on video, right?
Oh, here you go. You'll see me.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
1 second. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, if that helps.
Okay.
All right.
Hi.
Yo, what's going on? How you doing? How's it going?
Good. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I was just giving your bio, also kind of describing how it ended up. I reached out to you, and then just conveniently, I also saw you at a similar event later on that night. What's it called? I've been super excited. I've been trying to contact you, to interview you, to film what Corporate Pero Latinos is about for a long time. I found your content through another mutual person, Hendel. So really cool just how this little social network works in New York City. Please do introduce yourself. I read it out, but nobody can introduce you better than you can. So
Thank you. I actually was checking the YouTube to see when it would start, and I closed it as you started introducing me, so I might repeat some of the stuff that you said. But yes, so my name is Sophia Zarate. I am a Mexican American, born and raised for the most part in a border town called Laredo, Texas. I was in Texas until about 2016, and then I came to New York City through it was a national student exchange program that my university in Texas offered. I was supposed to be here for 1 semester, and then I just after a few 2-3 months, I just felt like I wasn't done fully exploring New York City and getting that New York experience. So I applied to transfer to the school that I was currently staying in, Queens College, and I got accepted. And so then that's when I let my friends and family know that I was just gonna move.
no
So that's
regrets.
part of the reason. Yeah, that's part of the reason why I have so much student loan debt. No regrets for sure, but I have a lot of student loan debt because I took out a big portion of that is money that I took out for my living expenses in New York City. But
And it is
yeah,
not cheap.
so it's been almost 7 years now, and New York City has actually become home now. So
Hey, real quick before I continue, can you just mute the stream if you see the YouTube? Can you just mute it? That way I don't get any feedback. Is it on?
the YouTube one, no.
Nope. All right, cool. All right, no problem. I just thought I heard feedback. So off the jump, what was that like moving from Texas to New York City? What were some of the differences in the Latino culture around here that you saw? Because I know it's different from Texas. Texas also being a border town, so you must have seen new nationalities of Latinos that you might not have seen in Texas when you were there.
Yeah, this is something that, my friends are probably tired of hearing, but I always bring up when I meet new people. Just how when I moved to New York City, that's when I was exposed to all of the different Latin nationalities and dialects, right? So, as a Mexican American growing up in a border town in Texas, all I knew was, the Mexican culture, the also the merge of the Mexican American culture, our lingo, our dialect. So when I moved here, I actually always tell this story. I had a job at Juice Press when I was in college, and I worked with like some Dominicans, some Puerto Ricans, and there was this Dominican guy that when we were both closing, he was like, "Oh, que no se te olviden los sorbetes," and I was like, "What?" Like so confused, and I was like, "What do you mean?" Because I had only been really interacting with like Colombians and Ecuadorians and stuff at that point. Like I hadn't really interacted with Dominicans. Um, and he was like, the sorbete. And I was like, what? And he grabs them, like he was annoyed. And he goes, the sorbete is the straws. And I was like, oh, you mean the popotes? And he
Oh,
was like,
shit.
what? And we just like got into it, about like who was right.
Hmm.
And then, so that was very eye-opening for me because I came to New York City thinking that like, oh, the way I say things, like that's the right way to say it.
Hmm.
But it's obviously not, right? Like I became quickly educated
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And I learned that there's like 11 different ways of saying popote depending on like where you are
Hmm.
or where you come from, right? So yeah, it was definitely a huge culture shock. Aside from the fact that Texas and New York are just completely different states,
Hmm.
like weather-wise, cost of living-wise, just in general, like so many
Everything.
things.
Hmm.
But other than that, it's like the diversity, right? So in Texas, you see some diversity maybe in the big cities, but where I come from, it was 96% Hispanic and Mexican for the most part.
Hmm.
So, um, so coming here, I remember the first month that I was here, hopping on a bus, and it was like three different women that were on the phone, and one was having a conversation with someone, and one was speaking French, one was speaking English, another one was speaking Spanish or something, and I was just like, wow, this is awesome because it was very weird for me, right? Because I was just in shock all the time
Of
of like
course.
how different it was from the environment that I was used to.
Hmm.
But I was like, this is so cool. And I was just really, I think that's what made me want to stay.
Hmm.
Well, one of the reasons, just the diversity
Hmm.
that I was being exposed to
Oh yeah.
in every way, not just in how people spoke, but also in personalities, in um, cuisines.
Hmm.
Oh my God, I hadn't tried so much food
Yeah,
until I
yeah.
got here. Yeah, and just so many different things like that that I really wasn't exposed to growing up. So I will say when I moved here, I thought, well, now that I think back, I was very ignorant about a lot of things. So New York City kind of forces you to grow up
Yeah.
and educate yourself, about the world, not just your little bubble. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I grew up, was raised here in New York, was born here. So like I love seeing people's like first time experiences here. Welcome Queen, welcome to the chat. That's actually someone who lives in Austin, Texas, came to visit for the first time, or maybe not first time, maybe second time, or I don't know, but came to New York City, and like I just love seeing people's first reaction to it, especially like adults who have never been here
Mhm.
before are just like, oh my god, this is so much to take in. And it's a really cool place to live. You never go back to Texas, you think?
No. So actually, my dad visited, that first year that I was here, and he's been here a few times, but he's one of those people that like comes and he's just like, I could never live here.
Hmm.
So it's always like that, right? Like, especially with adults, when they visit, they either love it or hate it.
Hmm.
And my dad, I think he just wishes that we were anywhere else.
Yeah,
That was not New York City.
yeah, I feel
Um,
that. Does he like
yeah, but
nature and stuff? Like, is it just like I'm not into big buildings?
he just thinks well, so he thinks everyone is like rude in New York City, that stereotype.
Uh-huh.
Because like people aren't being like sweet to him, and I'm like, well, you're in the way, like,
Yeah,
what do
you
you
gotta move.
expect? Yeah, and then just the traffic. everywhere you go, it's packed and
Yeah.
wait times, commute times. He thinks it's like so dirty. And I'm like, okay, well, there's pros and cons to it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. It's not for everyone, but
yeah.
what is it that you like other than diversity? Do you think you'd be able to do Corporate Pero Latinos, which we'll talk about soon, like in any other city? I know you've had a few other events where you've done them not here in the city, but do you think like New York City kind of helps you facilitate like the growth of your organization?
Yeah, so I actually was just doing this little like Q&A on my Instagram, and somebody asked about that, right? Like having different chapters in different cities. And that's definitely something that it's always been in the back of my mind. It's just very complicated when it comes to actually trying to plan it, because in New York City it was very organic. And then it became just word of mouth, right? And it's very easy, since I live here, to constantly be involved and like be showing up to events, or even just like on the side hanging out with different groups of people. And that has made the New York chapter very strong. So it's definitely more of a, I just haven't had enough time to like try to plan it. But I'm definitely trying to. So I don't think that I would move back to Texas, but that's one place where I definitely want a presence for Corporate Pero Latinos. I used to think that since it's Texas, you wouldn't really need it. But that's because of where I grew up too, I guess. And I recently visited Austin in the summer,
Hey, shout
and
out Austin.
yeah, so very cool city. One of my best friends lives there, and I had a meetup there, and it was really fun. I also had a picnic meetup in LA. I just didn't realize how big LA was.
Yeah, it's not as
So that
easily
one,
accessible as New York City either.
yeah, like if I don't live there, it's harder for me to know, okay, what do people want? So in New York City, I know like, okay, these are cool like Latin spots or like things we can do, right? In these places, I'm like, okay, I don't know. So I had those two meetups, but I don't really have a person in each of those that's like, let me keep this going to like organize and bring people back together, right? So, I know the interest is there, but it just, I need to figure out how to recruit those individuals that would basically become the chapter leaders. We have a presence in Minneapolis, which has grown enough to like actually say we have a presence. Um,
Hey.
yeah, but there is someone, her name's Lourdes, who basically leads that chapter, and she was the one that reached out to me, and we spoke about it, and I was like, okay, like, do you have a location? And very like detailed, and she like sent me content because she knew that would help for like exposure. So it's just about having all those different conversations with these people. But I know there's a big interest in Seattle, so
That's
that's
awesome.
probably one of the places where I'm, gonna look into having a meetup sometime soon or something.
That's awesome. And you said something like I didn't think that it would be needed there. Like what did you mean by that? Like what do you determine as like, this place would need it?
I just feel like, so when I moved to New York City, right, you have a lot of Latinos here, but when you join corporate America, it's especially, I was in the accounting and finance industry when I started, and you realize the lack of, Latinx representation in New York City in corporate America. But I remember like going to conventions or like business conventions or just in general seeing people that I went to school with or college with, and seeing all of these people go into corporate America in Texas, that I just felt like all these companies had a bigger presence regardless because of the amount of Latinos that there are in
There.
Texas. Yeah, so I was like, okay, so if they do have, a good amount of Latinos at these companies, and they're probably connecting, you know, within their own companies and building those relationships and stuff. But no, I even then, I don't think it's just about having other Latinos in your company, because a lot of times there's that struggle of both of you are assimilating. So you never really get to bond because you're not really being your authentic selves, right?
Yeah.
So it's having that like space outside of your professional environment where, sure, you know, we're corporate Latinos, but I keep saying this. What I think differentiates us a lot is that I created an environment in which you come in and you sort of bond with people as a Latino, right? Like, oh, where did you grow up? What's your background? You know, at least in New York City, it's like, did you grow up here? How long have you been here? What made you move here? All these things where you really connect and you have these like meaningful conversations. And then it's like, oh, and what do you do for a living? And it's, you know, that, and a lot of organizations focus on just tech, just business or finance, or this is just all of them merged. So you can be someone in finance having a conversation with someone who's an architect. And it's very interesting because even if you're like, okay, well, they're not in my industry, you get to learn from them. And yeah, I've just found that very interesting because I've had conversations with people from that are like architects or software engineers. Like I know nothing about that world,
Yeah.
but when they talk about it, you know, I'm like, oh shit.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. So for those that don't know, can you explain what Corporate Pero Latinos is and what it is that you do?
Yes. So I I guess I have to start off by, you know, starting with my TikTok uh, journey, I guess. So about a year ago, I had already been posting on TikTok, but I started posting on TikTok probably in like early 2021 because one of my best friends basically reached out to me, sent me a TikTok video about something like, and she was like, "You need to create a TikTok." And she was like, "I think you would be so," and this is like she knows me so well, she's known me forever. And she's like, "You would be great at, you know, creating videos about the stock market." I used to be very into like
Investing?
learning the basics of the stock market, all this stuff, right? And she was like, and she's like, and just like making it simpler for people to understand. And she's like, this girl does this. She sent me like examples and stuff. And I was like, you think? And whatever. But I just to make her happy, I was like, okay, let me do it. So I started posting videos where my goal, I guess, was to try and help people learn about the basics of the stock market and, you know, what investing means and how you can benefit from it. All those things that a lot of us never learned because our parents didn't know about it or didn't learn about it or
Because they were
just
broke.
or
My mom
right
was
or
broke.
yeah, like my mom has never in her life invested into anything, I don't think. So I grew up just knowing about borrowing, having loans, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
So in college, I learned a lot about this. I was an accounting major and took finance classes and stuff. And then during the pandemic, I got very into it, just like learning more about it on my own through like YouTube. So, you know, I was getting some traction, but the stock market is not like my passion, you know? So at some point I was just like running out of ideas. Like you can only talk about it so much when you only know so much. And I was like here and there posting, but not really taking it that serious. It's funny because like every time TikTokers get interviewed, they're like, when I started taking TikTok seriously, the day
Yeah.
I took TikTok seriously. But yeah, I was just whatever. And then at some point, I was getting a lot of content on my feed about, you know, just like funny Latino comedy, like videos, and then a lot of corporate videos, like work from home skits and stuff. And just, or very like, like inspiring motivational videos, right? So from all of those, I was like, I love this. And I would spend hours, just like watching. And I was like, I could probably like hop on some of these trends. So I started posting videos, and then I had a few of them like go off in like September, October. And so that got me like a big wave of followers, and a lot of them were
Dang.
Latinos. And so I was and that's when I told you I used to go live a lot on TikTok. And that's when I was interacting with a lot of Latinos, especially Latinas, that worked in corporate America. And they were like, I would make a lot of videos about my experience as a Latina in corporate. That's why, hence Corporate Pero Latina. And they were just like, oh, I relate so much to this, blah, blah, blah. And then that was a point in my life when I was feeling extremely unhappy with my career, extremely disconnected from my culture and like my Latinidad, right? I was constantly assimilating to try and to get that feeling of belonging. Um, so like to the point where I was literally like, I think I need to move back to Texas. And instead, I posted a video on TikTok where I was basically reaching out to the world asking for friends. And it was just, I've been connecting with several Latinas on here that say, they can relate and all this stuff. If you live in New York City and work in corporate America, like, let me know if you'd be interested if I set up like a meetup or hangout. I don't know how I worded it. And then it went viral, and I was getting so many people saying like, oh my God, yes, like I want this, I need this, like all this stuff. And so I created a Facebook group. And this started off just being New York City corporate Latinas. That's what I called it. And then it grew like to like a couple hundred.
Damn.
And yeah, like right away it was like at 200 or something. And this was still like um COVID times, work from home times, and it was around this time now when people were traveling to see their families and stuff. So I hadn't actually set anything up. But we had a Zoom call, which I've posted, and it was really cute because, we're all just like bonding. And then I set something up for, I think in January was like the first actual meetup, and it was just like 10 girls, and it was really cute. And I took videos, and then I posted about it on TikTok, and then that video went viral, and more girls joined. And so that was basically like the process, right? Post, get more people, host another meetup. And then from there, like people started meeting other people who are now like some of their closest friends. So it became pretty big. And then in April, that's when I made it co-ed. I had been holding off on that because I was like, I don't know how like guys would feel about like a girl like leading, their social group or something. So I created the guys group, and that one was like a lot slower to grow. But yeah, it's just like from when I created the guys one to now, it's just been like an exponential growth. And I feel like some of the people that joined from like April through late summer really made a difference because they were just like out there like meeting people and basically recruiting them. So now when I meet someone, I always ask like, okay, how did you find out about? Because it used to be TikTok, and now sometimes I say hi to people and they're like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. They have no idea who I am. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, yeah, nice to meet you.
That's a good problem to have, man. That's a great problem to have. That means you're
Yeah.
growing and that people are spreading the word for you.
But, long ass story short, um, it started as basically a social group. And once it became this really big community, I've always wanted to have, that power to make an impact in our community. And I was like, holy shit, like I had some people that were already kind of like, you need to do something more with this, or you need to put out merch, or you need to charge for, the events that you're hosting for free. So all these things that, they were in my head, but I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know if people will take it that seriously. And at some point, a few people who are now part of my team, right? Like the team that runs the group. It's no longer just me. And a few of them literally sat me down and were like, you know, you got something here. So now we've been trying to, you know, develop this actual organization, which is social at its core, but also having that professional aspect, you know, where you hear stories, you have, we want to have like panelist events, workshops, and also like the big mission, which is giving back to our community. So we've been, you know, our biggest one has been our partnership with La Contenta restaurant, which in which we go and teach basic English and computer skills to their service workers. So yeah, and it's very rewarding. You know, they always thank us, but at the same time, I'm like, no, thank you. Like, it really helps to, you know, go in every week and get reminded about like, you know, my mom, you always used to say this, so I always say it like, querer es poder. So like, you know, these are like grown ass men and one female trying to learn a whole different language and,
Yeah.
you know, trying to make it. Um, so yeah,
That's
it's been
legendary.
great. And so my main goal is just to have that times 100.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing. Hey,
yeah.
that's a beautiful story. Hold on. Welcome in, Flazzy. Thank you for being here. You're interviewing a boss lady right now. Yes, sir. Yeah, you really do work. How's it going? Thank you for being here, Nitro. What's it called? First off, shout out to the friend who sent you the TikToks and was like encouraging you to get on TikTok. Big shout out to them.
I
Shout
think
out to
she's
the
watching this right now.
Hey,
So
well, hell yeah. Shout out to
yeah,
them.
yeah.
Shout out the friends that told you, you know, we have something good going here. We could do a lot more. Like, we could have a stronger impact with this. That's the type of people you need to be surrounded with. Like, so really big shout out to them for, and shout out to you for having those people around you, right? Like, sometimes you have good friends that are good friends, but they don't motivate you. And it's really important to have those types of people. I did see that you won a grant. Is that from Cheetos?
Yeah, so
$25,000. Big shout out to that. So,
thank you. Yeah.
can you talk about the process of how that worked? And Berry Blossom, hi Sophie, love you.
That's my friend.
Hey, shout out.
So, yeah. So, yeah, that's another, you know, thing that goes back to TikTok. So Cheetos partnered with Bad Bunny and this was during Hispanic Heritage Month when they announced this contest. So they basically were looking for 20 different TikTok creators that were hoping to make an impact in their community in any way, right? So you have education, career, the arts, everything. So the whole thing was like, okay, post a video on TikTok, basically explaining what you would do with $25,000 to make an impact. And, you know, a bunch of people submitted videos with their hashtags and everything. I luckily had already been establishing, you know, what I want to do, but I just had to say, like, I want to fully focus on this to grow it and, you know, like that whole exponential thing. And so I posted a video and I was just like, all right, like this is exactly what I want to do. I talked about, you know, a portion of that grant would allow me to take at least 2 months off to really focus on this and try to turn it into an actual nonprofit organization. So we're currently in the process and fingers crossed, if everything goes well, we will be registered, you know, in like early 2023. So
Hey, that's
yeah,
amazing.
and it's crazy because like they don't really hold you accountable in a sense where they're like, okay, show me the results, right? But so it was, you know, a portion to basically survive, and then another portion for like legal fees and everything for it to turn it into a registered nonprofit. Another portion was to for money to give to La Contenta students that we've been teaching so that they can get a computer, and which we just did yesterday, I believe. And it was very sweet. And then another portion, which we still need to look into, is to create a scholarship fund to give scholarships to DACA recipients and undocumented students in New York State. A big reason for that was that I see that there are some existing ones, but the majority of them I see are in like states like California, Arizona, Texas, maybe, I think. So I feel like, there's definitely a lot of Latinos in New York City. This is where CPL started. So I would want to do it in New York. I haven't done that part yet, but that's another thing that, is part of our mission. So yeah, I posted my little TikTok video and then they announced the winner. I cried like a baby, and it's just been, a true labor of love, I think, ever since I started creating a team, I think. It's definitely very hard. I always get emotional talking about it. So I'm like trying not to cry. But it's been very hard because I feel like so many people have this like strong faith in me that I will like turn this into, some national like huge organization, which hopefully, right? But it's I put like all this pressure on me where I'm like, I can't let them down. And then I also, and this has been recently, really, um, where, the whole nonprofit thing, trying to find a lawyer, and it's just little things that come up, um, or like organizational things where I'm like, oh my God, like I went from being an entry level employee to like founder and CEO.
Yeah.
And I basically have 11 people on my team that are looking at me like, okay, what's our next move? And like, okay, what do you need from us? And it's just like, I don't want to get anything wrong, but obviously, like, that's part of the job.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So yeah, it's I'm very lucky to be working with the people that I'm working. Um, but yeah, I think a big part of like my pressure comes from, okay, they're like putting in all this work too, so I can't let them down, we need to like see this through.
Yeah,
And
you're the fearless leader.
yeah. But I won't lie to you, I go to sleep or wake up sometimes just like doing nothing. Like I just sit there and think, should I have just stayed my ass in corporate and like, right now just be living my comfortable life and my boring job. And, yeah, because I'm like, it's true, right? When they tell you that when you leave a 9 to 5 or whatever to become an entrepreneur, you're working 24/7.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's true. It's, I'm like, oh, I'm fully focusing on CPO now, but CPO isn't paying me. So I'm doing like all these other things so that I make sure that I can pay the bills, past those 2 months. So it's been just overwhelming, I think, because I'm like, okay, trying to be disciplined with my days, but also like exhausting myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it helps to be, I'm very open about it with like my Instagram peeps.
Hey, well
And
that's
constantly, yeah, I constantly, open up about how, I'm struggling with this or that, or every now, I throw in a video while I'm crying.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
just because I want people to see, like the real process, not just like the good parts about it.
of course, but you should be proud. You've only passed like 1 year anniversary, right? You're very young. The organization's very young, so you've done a lot in that short amount of time. And to secure a grant like that to take it to the next level is super inspiring. Big shout out to all the entrepreneurs out there. I've seen so many memes like that where it's like, quit my 9 to 5 to now work 24 hours. Like you think you're gonna be more free, but you're actually just putting in all your time. You're like constantly thinking about it, constantly like making decisions for it. What's up, Leo? How you doing? This is Sophia, founder of Corporate Pero Latinos. She is originally from Texas, moved to New York City. and started this great organization. She said she was recently in Austin. I have a couple friends in the chat right now that are in Austin. If you ever do another event, I'll let them know. I've been meaning to visit them as well.
Yeah, definitely. I think
Yeah,
also, um, just right now, you know how you mentioned the whole 9 to 5 to a 24/7.
yeah,
It's something that obviously I'm like living right now, right? But I always think about. But it's just a different feeling. Like when I was working a 9 to 5 at, so, you know, just for some background, like I've been in the accounting and finance industry, and then I transitioned to HR for, you know, a little less than a year. And then now I'm, well, during that, like I transitioned into like social media and trying to get involved more into nonprofit, um, the nonprofit industry. And then now also just, you know, the whole organization entrepreneur thing. And as myself, right, like my own brand as an influencer, basically. And it just feels so different when I was in those jobs. I would work. There were days where when I didn't have to do anything, and then other days I worked a lot, but I just always felt burnt out. It's like I would wake up and just be like, oh, here we go again, right?
yeah,
Like, shit, just dreading all the work that I had to do and the people that I would have to talk to and stuff like that. Now, fast forward, it's like I'm doing so many different things and I'm exhausted and I'm constantly like, you know, on.
yeah.
But I'm working with like all people that I want to work with. And, you know, I'm like, I keep reminding myself that, you know, hard work feels very different when you're very passionate about
What you're
how your
doing.
work will impact others. Yeah. Like in finance, I always felt so shitty because I was like, I'm just making the rich richer.
Hmm.
Like that was always my thing. And, you know, that's fine. but but to me, I just felt like, no, I gotta have like a bigger purpose than this. So yeah, definitely I think it's it's more of a grind, but I am a lot happier.
Hey, yeah, that's amazing.
Mhm.
And can you describe what that like first resignation felt like? Were you like real worried about taking that leap? Now you're making a bigger leap. So like, what was that like?
I think so I've had several resignations. I'm known to be a job hopper. No,
As
no
many
shame
people,
in
many
that.
millennials, I feel like do that, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I actually find it wild when like I hear those stories of like, I've been with the same company for 50 years. I'm like, oh my God,
Oh, yeah.
that's insane.
Yeah, definitely. I think so too. I also like get bored
Yeah.
after so long. So,
Hmm.
um, but I started at KPMG, this like big four accounting firm that was like my goal in college to start at a big four. I made it happen. And when I started, I spoke about this on a podcast, I think, but my first week on the job, because the internship is all fun and games, right?
Yeah.
And then my first day as like a full-time hire, I sat there and I was like, is this really it? Like, where is that feeling, you know, where for so many years I was like, I can't wait till I'm a big four consultant.
Hmm.
And then I was there and I was like, I'm not so sure I want to do this. Like already like went to school for 5 years, like and so much student loan debt, you know, and I was like, uh-oh, I think I made a mistake. And but it's there is this term, right, called the sunk cost fallacy, where it's an economics term, I think. Um, so once you put so much money, time, energy into something, and you feel like you're too deep into it, right? And you don't wanna back out or quit
Hmm.
because you're like, then that's time wasted, money wasted, whatever resource wasted. So I think that's like a huge part of why people stay in shitty jobs, stay in shitty relationships, stay in places where, you know, they've outgrown because they're just scared of like all the time that they've put into it or like, oh, like with me, right? For so long I was like, I have all this student loan debt. I need to stay in this job now because if
Yeah.
not, I won't be able to pay it. So that was a big fear of mine. But I think that was my main fear leaving that job. Once I started full time, I never saw myself there for too long. Um, so I was like, we'll see like how long I can last. I was thinking 3 years and then I'll make a move somewhere, but
Yeah.
I didn't know where, right? So I was 2 years in and then I was about to make senior, but I was like, no, I'm over it. Like I need to leave. And I was interviewing and so then that's when um I interviewed for Peloton and this was when there was still a lot of hype around Peloton and it was very exciting and I was joining as like a financial analyst on their research and development team, so I was like, holy shit, this is so cool. I'm gonna get to see all their projects and like the pipeline and everything. And then I joined and I realized that they were severely understaffed and I was just expected to sort of
Do
teach
everything.
myself everything and then just like run it, run the show. And I was still, like I still considered myself like very entry level. I had no experience as like a financial analyst. So I was like, and my manager, she was great. She was just very overwhelmed and I don't blame her, but I didn't feel like I had any guidance. So my worst experience has been working there, um, because I just felt like, oh my God, I'm not gonna succeed here. I'm like getting everything wrong, and I just felt so lonely too. And that's when I was like at my breaking point.
Damn.
And yeah, so my first jump was like exciting, because I thought I was like moving up and onto like an exciting company and
Hmm.
salary raise. I think when I left Peloton, that was like the freak out moment because I left. I really did not want to go through another month and close. So I gave my 2 weeks notice so that my last day would be right before month and close. But I had no job lined up and I had enough savings for like a month or a month and a half. And I was like, I don't care, like I need to do this for myself. And I don't know, like I would have never done that
Yeah.
before.
Before that.
Yeah, like I'm very type A, like I have my plan and I'm gonna stick to it.
I'm in
And
control.
I was, yeah, and I was just like, I can't do this. And, my siblings have always been very supportive and they're like, you're gonna figure it out. Just quit. You need to quit. You're miserable. So I was like, okay, you're right. And I quit. And then I just didn't know what to do. And I was like, all I want is a true 9 to 5 because I was working crazy hours. True 9 to 5 so that I can spend, the rest of my time creating content and doing what I want to do. So one of my followers reached out and she's now like a good friend. But she reached out and she told me like I work at this school and it's super chill. They're looking for an HR coordinator. And I was like, I have no idea how to work in HR or be an HR coordinator, but I was like, bet. What do I need to email? And she was like, yeah. So she was giving me like the inside scoop, like, okay, just say this and that, and as long as you're willing to learn, blah blah blah. I did a little research, and I think here's the thing with interviews, right? You I hate interviews because they're never genuine for jobs. You
Yeah.
ask what you need to
To
ask,
get
I
into
guess.
there. Yeah.
And then the answers that you as the interviewee gives, um, the answers that you give are BS. I would
Whatever.
study the answers because I'm like, this is what they want to hear. So every interview I've ever had, I'm just like, I always give the right answer because I know what they want to hear. Is it really, what I feel or what I'm passionate about or whatever I'm saying? Not really. But so with this interview, it was like out of school. I don't love like being around kids, but I was like, oh my God, yes, like I love kids. Like, and then But what I was really able to do is just like sell my transferable skills, right? Like I can learn HR, but with a financial background, I can bring a lot to the table, like blah blah blah. So I got the job,
Finessed
and
it.
then
Yeah.
yeah, because I was panicking. I'm like, I'm running out of time, and then I started, and it was chill until it wasn't. But I think it wasn't really the job there or, the people or anything. It's just that I was so distracted constantly with Corporate Pero Latina and Corporate Pero Latinos. I always had stuff going on for both, and I could never just like show up to work and like get the job done because I was always like, wait, I gotta post this, and oh, wait, like I need to like plan this event. And so I think it was just that. And when I just saw the opportunity to leave that job, and because it was also in person every day, and I didn't realize how much it was going to affect me,
Oh
but it
man, it
really,
was like one of those after the pandemic where they were just like,
yes.
no exceptions, you got to be here.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, that's totally fine. I don't care. Like, I'm good with that. I need the social interaction. Hell no.
No, you
Like,
don't.
after,
Not from there.
yeah, after like a month, I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah, not from there.
Yeah.
Like you get your social interaction elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing where I was like, and it was just draining me because I'm not a morning person. So having to wake up extra early to look decent, commute, and I would get home and I'm like, what content? I'm tired.
Yeah, that's it. Oh man, and that's when like doing your own content becomes like a burden. You're just like, oh, man, I have to do this. I have to put this podcast out. I gotta upload this right now, and then you eventually don't want to do it. You like burn out on it.
Definitely. That's what happened with the podcast. I think that's why I needed to take a break from it. Because I was editing one day and I was just like, oh, this freaking podcast. Like, I just like literally complaining as I was doing it because I was like, oh, I need to finish this like by tomorrow, and thinking I'm like gonna go to sleep so late. And my brother was like, he's like, stop. Like, if you're not enjoying it anymore, then why are you doing it? And he just always like brings me down to earth real quick, and he's like,
It's like you don't
okay,
have to
like
do
what are
this.
you doing? Yeah.
You want
Why
to
are
do
you
this, right?
forcing yourself? Yeah, he's like, I thought you liked doing
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Real quick, plug in
Yeah.
your podcast. Is it the same name, Corporate Pero Latinos?
Yeah. And
Uh,
it's on Spotify, Apple,
Yeah, someone
Anchor.
just asked what podcast. Yeah, definitely go check
Yeah.
it out. You had a phenomenal episode that I saw on your YouTube where you interviewed your mom in like a 3-part series. So is that like content that you no longer do, like, more intimate about like yourself, your upbringing? Is it more now just targeted towards like what your career has been like because I love that episode. I love those like that 3-part series. It was really cool to see how it tied into like the decisions that you made about the career you wanted to choose based on like what your mom went through, how she raised you. Like I thought that was really awesome. Like is that no longer like the type of content you make?
I actually, I went through this whole phase where I was like, I don't know what kind of episodes to put out because I thought I like got myself stuck in like that corporate niche. And I was like, well, the podcast name is Corporate Pero Latinos. I'm like, I can't just be putting out content that's like about my upbringing or my day to day or whatever, like my dating life. Because sometimes like I would talk about that, and everyone loved that episode, and a lot of people were like, it was so helpful, like so relatable. Like, I'm glad that you're like putting this content out there because like people need to hear it. And I was like, wow. And so like that one, I also interviewed my dad, and that was another one that people really liked, just to like get an insight right into at least my decisions, like you said, how they were impacted by how I grew up and what I saw growing up. So I feel like after those, I started trying to ask most of the people I interviewed about their upbringing, but not making it all about that. So I would just be like, okay, give us, that background. And then I would move on to like, okay, what do you do? And kind of that career path. But you're not the first person that said to me, like, you should make more episodes about just like people's experiences, even if it's not about their career. So I feel like I might. I think now that Corporate Pero Latinos is more of an organization, um, it might just be more about like our member stories, you know? So I've just been like trying to figure out.
The balance, yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely something that I do think
You should,
people want.
yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah,
so
100%. And like I say
Roman.
it too, I get frustrated when like, cause I know the algorithm really wants a niche, right? Like it wants you to stay in that niche, and like that's really what the content it'll pump out. So you're just like, I want, obviously to grow my platform, and how do I do that? Oh, I should stick to the niche that I'm in. But then I see like when a creator will make something that's outside their niche, and I'm like, oh, that's fucking amazing. But like they're not rewarded for that type of content by the algorithm. So they're like, I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna just stay in my niche. And I'm like, that's why I hate algorithms. I got a love hate for TikTok, because it's like done a lot of good for some of my content. But then I'm like, you know what? I don't want to stick to a niche today. I'm gonna post about this, and then it's just like, then I'm like, oh, I hate you, TikTok. So I'm always trying to find that balance, and I thought it was really good. I got to check out the one with your dad. My friend Leo in the chat said, I want to interview my dad so he can be like, pinche cabrón, ¿por qué me molestas? How was that, like, getting them to open up about it? Like, was that something that they were not used to, like being on content?
So if I'm being completely honest, it was two very different experiences. I think my mom had been waiting to have some sort of platform where she could open up. She also believes, and she's a big supporter of my content and everything. She believes that by putting your experiences out there, people can learn from them, and you can also, create your communities and everything. So she loves what I'm doing, of course. And so it gave her that platform to really let out a lot also about, what she felt. And I asked her some questions that were maybe questions that I was asking her for the first time. I asked her like, we were like digging into,
It's therapeutic.
we were digging into like our upbringing, and then why she thought she couldn't be a good mom and all this stuff, right? And then so at some point we left Mexico and we moved to Texas with my dad without my mom. So that was her letting us go in a way, right? And giving us that choice as kids. So we left, and I asked her in the episode, I was like, so do you regret that decision now, looking back? And she's like, yes. So, it's a lot of things that.
How are y'all not just both crying? Like, I would have been like bawling up the
I
whole
was
time.
very focused on like, okay, get my questions across. But she did like tear up and stuff. It was very emotional, and it was like a very good conversation for my mom and I to have, because we don't have the closest relationship, because I left when I was very little. So a lot of girls are a lot closer to their moms, and I was always closer to my dad. So now my dad was a different story, because growing up, my whole mentality was my dad's mentality. Being from Texas and moving to New York, which is like day and night, a lot of, my opinions on things, or just in general, my mentality, my values, like stuff like that, right? Not
Yeah,
to say
what?
that my dad's values are bad,
Well,
but
what do you mean by that? Yeah, like what? Because yeah, we do adopt a lot of values from like our parents early on. Like, what was like his mentality? Was it sort of just like like pull yourself up by your bootstraps, just get the work done?
so my dad is one of those people that believes that anyone that puts in the hard work will succeed. And so I often have like debates with him over this, because I'm like, it's not just that. Like, you become your environment. And so it's not as easy for everyone. I told him, when you came here, he has a very like great immigrant story. But I told him, like, you were given a lot of open doors, a lot of opportunities because of, this and that. And so we have these arguments where, like, when I was younger, I would just be like, oh, yes, like, whatever you say. Um, so since he's worked so hard, he's like, well, I had to go through all of this, and everyone needs to, like, So that's what I mean by that. But I think on the podcast episode, like, I was hoping that he would open up more in terms of like the deep rooted stuff, right?
Yeah.
And knowing his full story and everything, like I feel like he just kept it kind of surface level. Um, to the point where that's why I was surprised that people were like, "Oh, that was a really good episode," because we finished it and he texted me. He goes, "That was boring," and I was like, "Great, you didn't even like it,"
Uh-huh.
but um, but it was nice. I think both of them also, both of them are very much like me. That's where I get my personality from. They like to be the main character. So the fact that someone wants to interview them and give them that stage, that microphone, they were like, okay, let me talk about myself.
Let's go.
So yeah,
That's
it was
awesome.
nice. Hmm.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask, the interview with like your mom was very therapeutic. It seemed. Was that kind of like what influenced you going into the major you went into, finance and stuff? I had heard on the episode, talking about like. And this is something that I could relate to too. My mom, like, I just saw her in debt all my life. Like, up until still now, I see her in debt. And, like, that's something that definitely affected how I saw money, my stuff with finances. Like, I would just be more like, I don't need to buy this or I don't need to buy this. And, like, but certain things I would, like, spend money on. And, like, it's all over the place. But is that kind of what affected you going into finances in the first place?
Definitely, I think, and it's very interesting because I grew up seeing, like, my mom and dad are also polar opposites. So I grew up seeing two sides of that coin, right? Where my mom, when I was younger, like, I would see my mom constantly struggling, not being able to pay our tuition because she didn't have money to pay our tuition, but she wanted us to be in a private school. The whole like status thing. So she couldn't pay our tuition. We would sometimes like barely have enough like to eat and stuff. My grandma would take care of us. And it was very much that like scarcity mindset where my siblings and I honestly like we've trauma bonded over it because we all eat like we love to eat in like large quantities. And one day we were just like, why is it that we love to like binge eat basically, right? And we're like thinking, and it's because when we were little, we were so limited that you would open the fridge and if you saw a bottle of orange juice, right? But it was like almost over. You like never wanted to be the one to finish the orange juice or the ham or the whatever because you never knew if like they needed it for like the meal tomorrow or like someone else would want it for dinner or
Mm-hmm.
something. So it was very much like that where I was like I never want to be in this position when I'm older where I always owe people money. I can't like buy my kids nice things or, it's just, I'm always stressed because of money. I was talking to a friend recently and he's very right, right? A lot of us are like, money doesn't buy happiness, money isn't everything. But when you don't have money, it is.
Hell
It
yeah.
becomes everything.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the whole thing with my mom. And then with my dad, he was in sales for the longest time. So that comes and goes like in terms of like how much money you make because he was on commission.
Yeah.
So there were times where like he would make, like a solid amount of money, but he also had like car payments, house payments, all these kids, like way too many bills to where like it didn't feel like he had a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then there were times, so in the summer it was always a struggle because he was like, I'm not earning that much, so like we have to put a limit on this and that. And but when he would always spend on experiences like traveling as a family, all this stuff. But if I want it, I will never forget. Ever since like fourth or fifth grade till like the end of middle school, all I wanted was a Juicy Couture purse. Because a bunch of my friends had it, and it was just like, the
The
expensive
thing.
bag to carry around. It's like they're so like cringy now, but and and I would even ask for it like for Christmas. Like all I want is a Juicy Couture bag, and I never got it. It was like, here's this and that, like the affordable stuff, or not even affordable, but my dad is very frugal. So even if he has money, he's like, I'm not gonna buy that just because I like it.
Yeah, yeah. We
It
don't
needs
need
to
it.
like have some value
Mm-hmm.
add, you can't just buy something because you want it.
Yeah, yeah. It has to serve a
So
reason.
yeah, and then seeing that side as a teenager also, I was like, when I'm older, I want to be able to buy
Splurge.
something just because I want it or just because I'm craving it. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like that's why I work so hard.
Yeah, I want to splurge
But
because it's my money and
yeah,
I made it. Yeah, I 100% feel that.
yeah.
Um,
So in high school, I've been a dancer ever since I was in middle school. So in high school, I had this whole plan where I wanted to major in dance. Very different from everything else I've done. Um, and my dad was kind of like, my brother had already gone off to school to study music, and he was like, oh my God, like, none of my kids are gonna be like bankers. So he wanted everyone in finance. He's like, finance is where it's at. And I was a trophy child. So when I was like, I want to major in dance, it was kind of like a letdown.
oh, yeah, I know
But
that
he still,
Latino. They
yeah,
want you
where
in
he
those good careers that will make money and you'll get a job and it'll be secure.
exactly the safety net, right? So he acted like he was supportive, but deep down I knew he was like, "Ugh, she's making a mistake." And then I auditioned for two schools and got rejected because I was good for Laredo, where I grew up. But then once I left Laredo and I went to those auditions, I was like, oh shit. And I was like, I don't want this thing that I love to become something that I hate because I'm doing it for money and I'm a struggling artist, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So then I applied to Texas State and I was like, you never hear of a struggling accountant.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. They
I
always got
went
work.
from dance to accounting, but I didn't think, oh, accounting's gonna be boring or whatever. I was like, I love math. That whole stereotype of like accountants are good at math. Accounting has nothing to do with math, really. But I loved math. I was always good at it. I liked numbers. So I was like, this is it. And I was like, I'm gonna be a businesswoman. And ever since then, I was just like, I can make a lot of money being an accountant, and that's what I want because I don't want to ever live, in that way where I'm like just stressed about making ends meet. And now it's kind of crazy because right now I'm sort of there where I'm like, oh shit, I have to figure out like how I'm gonna do it. But it's by choice, you know.
It's the
I
thing
know
that
I
you're
can always
passionate.
go back and get a corporate job. But yeah, that's basically why I ended up majoring in accounting. But I minored in sociology, which was what I found really interesting. I've always been like fascinated by how people's brains work. And I mean, that's more psychology, right? But just
Human
like what,
interactions.
yeah, human interactions, like what moves them, what drives them, like all those things, and or like the nature versus nurture, right? All that stuff. So I minored in it, and people were like, "For what? Like you're not gonna do anything with it." And like fast forward, I feel like a lot of the things I learned in those classes, I've been able to apply to everything that I'm doing. So
As a founder, yeah, what you do is amazing. So, can you describe like the vibe of what one of your events is like? I saw the video of your first year anniversary. Like I said, I saw you on a stage performing. That's why I was like, don't be nervous about this. I
not
seen you in front
performing.
of, I seen you in front of people, dancing, singing the lyrics. Yeah,
Yeah.
what's like the vibe of your events like?
I feel like for the most part, most of like the CPL official events are a lot of them have been social. So it's a mix of people that have been in the group from the very beginning, people that joined 2 months ago but suddenly felt, like such a strong connection with other people from the group. And then you always have like people who are there for the first time. So it's really cool to see that because automatically, like, even if it's your first time, I think that everyone is very welcoming and, just, it's like you have people walking the room, talking to everyone and everyone interacting. And then there's always dancing, there's always Bad Bunny, there's always people like having, like side conversations. There's always a speech by me. So most of the time, I think I always try to like add meaning to these events. Um, so a lot of the times during these events, when I say something, it's not always a speech, right? But I always just say a few words. Um, it's just to remind people about, why we're here, what my like short-term plans are for us, and um, I think the members really like that because everyone likes to feel seen. So when you run an organization and you start just doing everything, assuming that you know what people want, that's when you lose a lot of people.
Yeah.
So this has become very much a community, right? Like, sure, I'm CEO, founder, like, oh my God, the face of Corporate Pero Latinos. But at the end of the day, I'm constantly interacting with people from the group. A lot of them are like my closest friends. And it's always about that feedback, right? Or during the event, seeing like, okay, who's like enjoying themselves, who isn't, like, there's typically, we have like food and drinks sometimes, and it's just very fun. We try to change it up so it's not always the same thing. A lot of times, like it's the constant like happy hour and you're like, okay, like can we do something more than just a happy hour? So we throw in karaoke nights. We had an event where we all went to a Yankees game, and a few of us ended up like in Times Square eating at one of those. I think it was like Margaritaville, and it was just very like touristy. But you end up having those like random like fun experiences. So yeah, I think
That's
in
the
the
vibe.
future, if we're registered, it will just become more structured where the members will know what to expect in terms of like, okay, like a panelist event is coming up, or oh, a social like group outing is coming up, or oh, this volunteer initiative. So yeah, it'll just be more structured, but we've sort of been doing, all this stuff.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I've seen pictures of. I think you guys did something at Prospect Park as well.
Yeah, we had a carne asada in the summer. It's a
Yeah,
lot easier in the summer because you can use a lot of outdoor spaces for a
free.
big group of people. So we had several like picnics and a carne asada that were very fun.
And I'd love to ask, like, what's like, do you do it in Spanish? What's like the role of like English and Spanish for the organization? Like, have you done? I know the episode you did with your mom, that was fully Spanish, which big kudos to you. That's like one of the things I'd love to do is like do a podcast episode in Spanish. I can speak Spanish, fluent. The only thing is like I just know that I'm not gonna get like I'm not gonna express myself in the eloquent way that I could in English in Spanish. Like I just don't know enough big words like that. But yeah, what's like the role of it for your org?
I think for the podcast, yeah, mostly English just because of that reason, right? Like when you're having these like important conversations or serious conversations where you really want to um, eloquently explain yourself. Um, it's a lot easier for us in English sometimes, but with my mom, obviously it was easier in Spanish. So I kept having to take a lot of pauses, and I would be like, ¿Y cómo te sientes al? And I was like, okay, what's a good word to use for
Yeah.
this? Or um, explain, or any sort of corporate lingo. When my job came up, I was like, oh shit, I don't know how to say that. Like, so a lot of editing there, but. So for the podcast, yeah, mostly English. But in terms of our events and we have like chat groups on the Discord. Um, it's a lot of Spanglish. So we're very welcoming to like, you know, how do you say, like normalizing Spanglish
Spanish.
because a lot of us, it's just a way to communicate sometimes that like is easier, or sometimes it's more funny when you talk in Spanglish.
Mhm.
So there are times where like even in like our team chat for like the leadership team,
Mhm.
we'll throw in like Spanglish, and you'll start like someone asks a question in English and then someone responds in Spanish and then you throw in like Spanglish, and it just like goes back and forth. But I think so many of us have that mixed like double nationality, or maybe not nationality,
Two
right? But
cultures, yeah.
we have two cultures that we grew up with. So I'm no one to expect people to just, you know, act like Americans in our group, or just, oh, this is a Latinx community, like we're all speaking Spanish. So it's really just like preference.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's I was just curious about like because yeah, it's New York City, so a lot of the people here are going to be like either first generation, second generation, or have assimilated into English. But it's cool to have that as an option for people who might feel more comfortable saying certain things in Spanish. Like I know with my wife, like she'll switch to Spanish when like it's a joke or something that she is just more comfortable saying in Spanish than English. And yeah, it's really cool that you did that in the podcast. I couldn't really tell it was edited, so it all came out very fluently. And
Right.
Queen and Leo. So what her company does? Do you want to just give a quick summary again? Somebody might have missed it. They weren't here early on. Just could you give like a quick description of Corporate Pero Latinos?
It's basically an organization that was born out of a small group of friends, of strangers that became friends. We are in the process of becoming a nonprofit, and we are a community first, right? In which we have a lot of social events. And then there is a professional aspect to it and a volunteer aspect to it. So, as a nonprofit, you have to state your mission in writing, right? And for us, that's basically Corporate Pero Latinos was created to facilitate social and professional interactions through shared experiences. And by those shared experiences, that's, your picnics, your carne asadas, your Yankees game, your professional event, um, while encouraging our members to give back to the community, which is, our teaching English to service workers, etc. So,
Yeah, that's
yeah,
really awesome. I've been meaning to go to La Contenta as well since I've seen them.
so good. I
Yeah,
eat
I've
there
been.
every time we go.
Yeah, I'm 100% gonna go at some point this week while I'm off. Um, before I let you go, I know you had to get out of here before 9:30. Somebody had asked earlier on, what are some of the challenges you feel of being like a Latina influencer?
So I never really post about this because I feel like it's just implied. Um, but there are a lot of Latino, Latina, Latinx influencers that feel very strongly about this, where, you know, on TikTok, on Instagram, the algorithm just seems to favor, a lot of times non-POC people, so the majority of the time, right, white people. And so if you post something, it might gain some traction, but it's a lot, you see it a lot more often where like, you know, someone else posts something and it goes viral and then they just gain all this traction. So I think it's also not, so it's just the comparison, right? Like comparison is the thief of joy. So when you start comparing yourself to all these other creators that are not Latinos and they're having all this success and you're like, why? It becomes very difficult because then you're like, you start trying to create for the sole purpose of like going viral or, you know, being as big as them. And so that's been a challenge because I'm very stats driven. I've always loved stats. And so, you know, when I got to 10K, I was like, I just want to get to 10K to be considered a true influencer. Because like on TikTok, that's sort of like when you're like, oh, I'm a micro influencer. So I was like, I just want to get to 10K. And then I got to 10K and I was like, yay, finally. But then you start being like, okay, now I just want to get to 15K. And
20K,
then I'll be
100K.
happy.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, like I've been trying to get to 20K forever. And so when that growth slows down a lot for you, you're like, what am I doing wrong? And you start to like really overthink the content that you're putting out there. And I think for a long time this year, I was posting stuff that was kind of like, just because I know that I need to post one video every day, you know, for my chances of going viral. And I was just posting like random things like with audio trends and stuff. And there were times where I wasn't even enjoying it because I would wake up and be like, shit, I have to record this video before I leave for work. And I would do it and post it and I was like, okay, whatever. But it's not like, oh, I'm like enjoying the process. So it's just that comparison is, I just don't like it because I feel like I could be, and I'm saying this as like advice that I also need to take for myself, right? But I could have 15K followers and have so much impact, you know, and for example, like the way I have it with Corporate Pero Latinos, like what I've been able to create. And it's so much different from like maybe a white creator who has 100K followers, but maybe they haven't made that big of an impact, you know, in any sort of community. So it's just like constantly reminding yourself that it's not really a competition like that. So that's a big struggle because of course I compare myself sometimes. And then just as a Latina myself, it sucks because a lot of times there's that saying like, sometimes it's your own people, right? So being a Mexican American, there are times where, and this happens like in real life and in your content. So this is, you know, a lot of people talk about this. Sometimes you're like not Mexican enough or not Latina enough for Latinos. And other times you're not American enough for Americans. And you feel like, okay, well, where do I fit in? Right? And I feel that to this day, especially now that I'm surrounded by Latinos constantly. The feeling of not feeling American enough has always been stronger because I've always been self-conscious about my accent or, you know, the way I look, my skin color, whatever, right? Less now, but when I was little, it was a lot. And then now that I'm surrounded by Latinos, especially, for example, like with the World Cup, I didn't grow up watching soccer.
Yeah.
I never played soccer. So I've never had like that big of an interest in soccer, but a big percentage of corporate Pero Latinos, I would
It's
say,
like,
is
yeah.
like a fanatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, and then some of them were like going to watch the games and whatever. Of course, like for the Mexico ones, I was like, I want to go just like for the vibes and
Just the
whatever.
vibes.
And,
Yeah,
like,
it's a party.
yeah, I like just being surrounded by that environment. but I wouldn't say like, oh, I'm paying attention to the game.
Yeah.
So there are times where, for example, like, they'll talk about something and I'm like, oh, what's that? And they're like, you don't know what this is? Or, like Latinos will do that to you too, where they're like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, it's, or like, oh my God, it's just like so surprised that you're asking a question about like the soccer rules. And
They're
I'm
just
like,
like,
okay,
I didn't
well, I
grow up
didn't,
liking this. Yeah.
yeah. So, so it happens with my content too, because at some point I was like, it was risky to start posting videos and like speaking Spanish or with a Spanish um, text overlay thing. And then people are like, you should put like subtitles like with the translation or something. But sometimes it's a joke in Spanish that like if you translate it in English, it's not funny.
Yeah.
So
Or
I'm
it doesn't
like,
make
how am
any
I gonna
sense.
do that? Yeah, I don't even know how to translate the joke. So so I started posting like in Spanish and then sometimes like those would flop and I was like, should I maybe? And or like they wouldn't flop, but then the growth, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't getting that many followers and I was like, it's probably because, you know, I would constantly, because for a long time I was posting this type of content, I would constantly compare myself to corporate creators. And they were growing way faster than me and we kind of started, not like similar
At the same time.
and
Yeah.
mhm. And but they were just, all their content was in English. And I was like mixing it where I felt like, shit, I should post either all in Spanish or all in English. Because I would also see Latino creators that all their content was in Spanish and they were like growing so fast. And I was like, oh my God. But to me, like, to stay authentic, it's just sometimes I feel like making videos in Spanish and sometimes I feel like making videos in English, sometimes in Spanglish. And so that's been like another struggle with just like what type of content I put out there and thinking about just like what people are gonna like.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Well, always make what you like. That's what I always try and remind myself. If you're not making content that you like and then it flops or it doesn't get like the growth that you expect it to, it feels so much worse because you're like, shit, I don't even like this. But like if something doesn't get the growth that you were expecting and you like it, it's still something that you like and you enjoyed making it. That's what I try and remind myself all the time. Real quick before I let you get out of here, my wife just asked, what's your first language? Because I don't think she has an accent. She has to hear me talking. You don't have an accent, Zundere. But yeah, what is your first language?
Really? um, I actually have a weird accent because it's very specific to Laredo, where I grew up. But it's not like the stereotypical Mexican accent. Um, but I guess I would have to say Spanish because so I was born in Texas, but I was only there for like very short periods of time when I was little. So I started speaking English, but then my upbringing was in Mexico, where I basically forgot any English words that I knew, and I had to relearn English when I was 9. So yeah, Spanish.
Spanish was the first. All right. Yeah, that's always interesting. I always love asking people because when you have parents in your first generation, it's like it's a weird mix, you know. Before you get to school, you're hearing Spanish in the household all day, so it's really a toss up of which one you learn first. And I think what you're doing is really awesome. Somebody had asked earlier, can anybody join Corporate Pero Latinos?
So we are currently trying to figure out, like, I guess, the best verbiage around that. Because it's obviously a group that I created specific to Latinos, right? But we're very aware that there are a lot of allies out there, and there are a lot of people that we meet that are not Latinos, but they love the Latin culture. So as of now, it's mainly Latinos in our community, but we are thinking of ways in which in the future, maybe we move on to like Slack, right? Where we have channels where it's like all Latinos and then like an allies channel. And then we have, events where allies can join and Yeah, but as
And
of
do you have to
now,
be working in corporate?
oh, okay, so is that what they're talking about?
Uh, I'm not. Well, so my wife says I'm Latina, but
Mhm.
she's like finishing her bachelor's still, so she's not in the corporate world. I'm Latino. I'm in the corporate world. I
Yeah.
work at the New York Stock Exchange, so I'm trying to join that. um, um, so yeah, do you have to be in corporate?
This was actually one of the hardest questions I would get when I first would go viral on TikTok over this because they're like, why is it just corporate? Or like, okay, what does corporate mean? I can't even explain what corporate means. So I think a lot of people think that, oh, I have to be a part of corporate America to join this group. And I don't think so. I mean, right now, technically, I'm like nonprofit. I'm not even corporate.
Hmm.
Like, um, I would say to me, the corporate means more like any non-physical job, like if you have an office job where you're experiencing the 9 to 5 struggles and all this stuff that you can relate to, I would consider that corporate. So I don't know if that answers the question,
Hmm.
but we definitely don't only have people that work in corporate America, in corporate for Latinos. There are people that work in nonprofit and some work in the healthcare industry, which I don't know where you would
Place
put
that
that under.
because it does get
Yeah,
corporate if like you're in like the administrative side of it.
exactly. Yeah. So it just depends. It's not so much about where you land in terms of corporate, nonprofit, non-corporate industry. It's more about how you're able to relate to the experiences, like the professional experiences. My brother is a sommelier in the restaurant industry, and he's a part of it. So but he has worked in under hospitality groups where he worked in management, and that's very corporate. You have to work with corporate. So it's not about actually working in corporate, but about the experience that you're having in your professional life. So if you feel like, you know, this is a space where you might connect with other people in terms of your experiences, then yeah, you should join. Um, and of course, it's not like I'm like, oh no, you're not, you don't work here or whatever. Like
You
you're not
can't be in
in.
our
Yeah,
club.
yeah. So right now, that's how it is. So
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. So just bring good vibes, it sounds like. And I'm really looking forward to definitely talking to you about doing like the in-person like filming and stuff.
Yeah,
I'd
I'm
love to,
excited.
give you that as like a piece of content that you can then use to promote and stuff. Like I'm all about it. I'm trying to also just meet like more people in the city who kind of like, because that's what a lot of my content has to do with, is like balancing between those two cultures. Like I have a working title of Between Those Mundos, because you're always like, the Spanglish is alive and well, like always between those two worlds. And it helps me. This stuff is super therapeutic to me, knowing that like, all right, I'm not like the only person who like felt like this, because I grew up in the suburbs and like predominantly white areas, and like had a lot of cultural disconnect growing up. So super cool what you're doing. Thank you so much for being here. Please plug in anything that you want to plug. You did amazing. Everybody in the chat loved you. So please plug in what you gotta. And I hope this is not the last time you're here.
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, before I go, if you want to follow me on TikTok or Instagram, it's Corporate Pero Latina. If you want to follow the organization and then see where we go in 2023, it's Corporate Pero Latinos on Instagram, LinkedIn, and the podcast is also called Corporate Pero Latinos. So
Hey.
thank you very much for having me. This was great.
Yes, and
Although I was nervous.
I will have all the links in the description. You did amazing. Guests like you make my job easier. Now when I listen back, I could just cut up like sections where I'm like, killed it, killed it. All right, real TikTok. Here we go. Like you make my
Yeah, I
job
know.
way
I'm
easier.
like waiting for them.
Thank you so much for being here. Flazy says thank you. Berry B Blossom, hearts, hearts, hearts. Everybody's saying thank you for being here. You are appreciated. Chingona, somebody said.
I love that.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here. Have a great night. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Talk soon.
All
Bye.
right. Adios. Yes, sir. Everybody make some goddamn noise for yourselves. Y'all helped this interview go as well as it did. Tonight was a great success. Thank you all so much for everything that y'all do. Y'all killed it. Peace out. Nitro, thank you so much for being here, homie. I hope I get to see you soon in the chat as well, in the streams. I don't have an official schedule right now, but like what you saw tonight is what I do. I bring on really amazing people, have them come through, talk. Like I said, this is therapy to me because I get to speak to people and I'm like, damn, I don't feel so alone with what I went through. So amazing. Thank you all so much for being here. Y'all killed it. Sophia killed it. Make sure to go check them out. I'm going to drop all those links in the descriptions. Great interview, homie. Hey, Nitro, blessings on blessings on blessings. Thank you so much for being here, homie. And I hope you get to enjoy the content. You get to know a little bit about the community, the chat that we have. We have some really great people in here like Flazi, Queen and Leo, Queen of Wands, Sundere-chan. We have an amazing, amazing community of people that are just real, down to have fun, funny people. We care about important topics. We speak about a lot of important stuff on here, but we always try and keep it real, always try and keep it funny, try and keep it light, and just have a good night. And blessings on blessings on blessings. Thank you all so much. Please check me out. Real quick question. How many of y'all would be interested in if I did an IRL stream around New York City? I think tomorrow is when I'm trying to do it. Either tomorrow or Friday with another one. My man Flazi, baby. Drop a bomb for Flazi. I'm thinking about doing an IRL stream where I walk around New York City, show y'all all the amazing, the lights and all of that. There's a lot of great stuff to be seen in New York City. New York City is a great Christmas city. This is a great time of year. A lot of people come here. So please do let me know if y'all are interested in an IRL stream because I would love to get out there and just walk around, show y'all stuff. And it's raining tomorrow. No! Don't tell me that, fam. Oh, no. I didn't even check the weather, homie. If so, I'm not going to do that because I don't want to get my equipment all wet. Bad too, dude. No. Raining bad. Oh, it does look like it's raining real bad. Oh, Friday too. Oh, no. All right, y'all. We're going to figure it out. No worries. Thank you for letting me know. Now I could adjust my schedule. I was planning on doing more with the stream tonight. Find Salvador. No, definitely not going near Salvador, man. That night. What's it called? I am definitely going to do something IRL. I've been wanting to do more IRL stuff. It's raining and it's going to be cold. Yeah, no. Oh, no. That's a shot to my heart, man. I really thought that I was about to put in some work on the IRL. Thank you all so much for being here, though. We'll figure it out. I am definitely going to do more stream. I actually invited Sundere onto the stream to celebrate. Like, let's do a Twitch Christmas celebration. That way we can just get it popping, have a good time here. So we'll see what we do. Definitely going to be another stream this week. I'm not sure when. Follow me on all social media, Instagram, TikTok, right there. Perfect timing, Streamlabs. Check out the link tree. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok. TikTok is blowing up. It's blowing up. It's blowing up. So we're doing well on there. We streaming, baby. Yeah, one more stream definitely coming this week. Blessings on blessings on blessings to all y'all. Let's go find somebody to raid. Oh, let's raid my man's. I haven't seen this dude in a minute. I ain't seen him in a minute. We streaming at some point. Queen Leo, love y'all. Thank you all so much for being here. Flazi, love you. B-Day, homie, IRL. B-Day stream. My G. Yes, sir. All right. Deuces, y'all. We about to be out skis. Let's go raid Lowlife Diploma. Another NYC homie. Real ass dude. Everybody, I'm trying to change my hotkeys. I haven't been able to change them, but that's the reason why y'all haven't heard me playing the What Up Gangsta or the Goodbye Horses. Now that we're on YouTube, I'm trying to get less copyright strikes. I get hit with copyrights all the time now, and it's really annoying. But that's cost of doing business. You know what I'm saying? It's the cost of doing big business. Everybody, pieces. Love you all. Thank you so much. Go check out Sophia. Blessings on blessings on blessings. You know we got more coming. Deuces.